Hello, I'm Chris Benzinger, and this is Whine with Father Doug.
That's really good, Chris. It's a GSM, a red blend, that I thought we might enjoy this afternoon. From Italy, as a matter of fact.
From Italy.
So what brings us here today?
Yeah, well, today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about something that I'm seeing a lot in churches. They're saying, what are we going to do? What's like the silver bullet? We need something that's going to change this trend. We need our church is growing, not to the level that we want them to, but we're realizing that there's no silver bullet. There's no program that's going to make that happen for us. It's really a process. And I think if we go back to, there's a lot of talk of parishes going from maintenance to mission, being more mission-oriented. If we go to the Great Commission, Jesus, the last words that he says in Matthew's Gospel to his disciples, go and make disciples. And so what I see happening a lot in our church is a real effort to make disciples. But what does that mean? It really means focusing more on a process. And I feel like since Vatican II, there's the popes and even the bishops have given us a little bit of a guideline to say, let's break out that discipleship process into some very simple steps. And I know here at St. Mary's, we went through a process to try to help do that here and came up with encounter. This first step of being a disciple is an encounter, a relationship, a feeling of belonging that someone might have where Jesus encounters them and something happens inside of here. And then what happens after that is that there's this desire to grow. Tell me more about this church. Tell me more about this Jesus who I've had an encounter with. And I learn more about how a church works and the sacraments and the ways that the church is encouraging me in my own personal growth. And then based on that experience of encounter and then grow, then I go and am a part of that process for other people.
Right.
What I find interesting is that it happens on a personal level too, right? There's areas of my life that I still need to encounter Jesus more. There's still an encounter. It might be in my marriage. It might be in my pride. I need Jesus to come into those areas of my life when I'm prideful. And in my growth in that, then when I'm with a friend, I might be able to be a witness to how I'm encountering Jesus specifically in pride or something like that. But then it also works, I think, in terms of ministries. Think about every ministry there is in the church. Doesn't the ministry exist to make disciples? If the church exists to make disciples, then every ministry exists to support that, and then every person within the ministry. So, I don't know, any thoughts on that as we've kind of gone through that process a little bit?
Well, what it reminds me of is that a lot of times people think that's sort of the job of the priest and the deacons, or if you're blessed to have nuns in your parish, that the nuns. But
right.
What you're saying, if I understand correctly, it's a calling for the lay people as well to be involved in this disciple making. And I'm wondering as you speak, does this also have something to do with the fact that we hear for at least 20 or 30 years now, parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, lamenting the fact that their children, grandchildren, nieces and nephews no longer go to church or have any use for church in their life? Is it related to that somehow?
Absolutely, and I think mainly because today's culture, young people, I would say even our ages and younger, are no longer going to church and giving to church just because the church says so. They're looking to be a part of a relationship, a part of a higher purpose. So I think what's happening is that people are realizing that it's living a full Catholic life isn't going to Mass and being involved or going to Mass and being active, because that can be almost like a church can take the approach of, hey, we're the church, here's what we have to offer you. You come to Mass, register, we'll send you the envelopes or whatever, and here's the menu of things that you can get involved with. But that really then becomes like kind of a dead end. And what we're realizing is that the culture, people want to be a part of something, a higher purpose. And what higher purpose is there than Jesus, his church, and his mission, right? So what's happening is that the laity are saying, I can settle maybe for just being involved, but that's not really feeding the deepest desire, because we're made for intimacy with the Father. So that if I want to do that, I have to become a disciple, which means in my life, there's movement. There's a process that we're going through every day of our life. So it's not just the priest or the religious, it's the laity that are saying, we need to rise up and be the church, as opposed to being a laity that just go to church and is involved. And if we do that, we're going to see a culture shift in our parishes, because that is touching on something that nothing in this world can satisfy. Only the relationship with Jesus, his church, and participating in his mission are we able to live that full life. Even if we don't even recognize, even if we can't even define those terms. So I just think it's fascinating.
So then our entire lives become this movement towards Christ, to becoming more and more like Christ, until the day where we actually meet him.
Right. So someone has said that the one initial stage might be to do something for Christ. That's a good thing. Do it for Christ. A next deeper stage might be to do it with Christ, is even maybe a little bit better. But ultimately, it's becoming like Christ, right? We are Christians. We are people who are made in the image and likeness of God, to be a Christian. So it's more of it's a lifestyle, it's a process, it's a journey. It's not an activity or a program.
Where we're orienting ourselves towards becoming better disciples ourselves, and in the process, engaging other people to become better disciples and thus make disciples of Christ.
Exactly. So then it happens not just on the campuses of church. Church isn't a building, church is a people. So if I'm doing this, if I'm engaging in this process of encounter and grow and go, then I can do it in my marriage, I can do it in my parenting, I can do it in my workplace, because it's not necessarily just preaching Jesus or thumping the Bible on the street corner. It's living and becoming like Jesus that permeates every relationship that I have.
Well, that just sounds like a beautiful way to live a full life in the church, in Christ, and being in the world perhaps, but not of the world, by bringing Jesus out into the world by the way we live our lives, not just by what we say and what we do.
Right, exactly. So imagine a church, a whole parish that gets this. It will impact not only our parish, but it'll impact our entire community.
Right.
And that is something to cheer about.
Cheers.